Hi, welcome back to Creative Faith with Makenna. I'm Makenna, and today we're going to be talking about faith-based movie recommendations that I have. These are movies that involve Christianity and God. It's all about God. The first movie is called A Week Away. It's a Netflix-based film, and it's a musical, so it's got great music. You want to dance along with it kind of music. So the premise of this movie is that this troubled teenager, he's been in and out of foster homes and all that. So his last resort before going to juvie is he's punished by having to go to church camp. And he thinks it's just regular camp, but no, it's church camp, and he figures this out on the bus ride there. It's all about him learning to, who is God, and finding a place to belong. There's some love relationships and making friends, and just it's a fun camp, but it's all centered around God and Christianity. I really like this movie. It's a musical, so it's upbeat and fun, but also kind of shows the love of God. And the other thing I like about this movie is that it shows the love of God in young people and teenagers, and that doesn't happen very much. It happens more than you think it does, but less than it should. Next movie I want to show you is called Miracles from Heaven, and it is actually based on a true story. This movie follows a young girl, Anna, and she has been diagnosed with this incurable disorder that she can't digest foods. Her mom is really determined to figure out how she can save her daughter. Basically, this movie shows how difficult it can be to trust in God during these circumstances, especially with a mother trying to save her daughter. It's a love like no other. The majority of this movie is their hardships going through that and trying to still have a relationship with God. And the ending is really good as well, so I would encourage you to watch this movie if this plotline interests you. So this next movie is called I'm Not Ashamed. This is actually based on a true story, and I'm not sure if you've heard of this, but it's based on the Columbine high school shooting that happened in the US. The main character in this movie, her name is Rachel Joy Scott. She grew up in a Christian home. God had a place in her life, but her daily life might not always include him. She struggled in trying to find her place in the world and when to bring God into situations and when not to. She was a teenager dealing with not knowing her identity. She goes from an uncertain Christian, not even having a relationship with God, to outwardly professing his love. The transformation in this movie is incredible, and the way that she impacts those around her. There's a homeless teenager that she helps, and he becomes like a big brother to her. There's kids at school where she will include her faith in her school projects, and then people will say, I thought what you did today in class was really cool, and I hadn't really considered the idea of God before, that kind of stuff. So this movie is the true story of Rachel Joy Scott. She was one of the victims of the Columbine high school shooting. I'm not gonna lie, the end of this movie is very sad because, as you've heard, Rachel Joy Scott is one of the victims in the movie, so the impact of her life impacts her friends in such an emotional way. This is an emotional movie towards the end, but it's an amazing movie. That movie was called I'm Not Ashamed. This next movie is called God's Not Dead, and it's actually a series, so there's a few different movies like this one. And I really like this movie because it shows the arguments of the atheism side versus the Christianity side, and really just sticking up for God in this debate of whether God's dead or God's not dead. This movie follows the story of a Christian student who has to take a philosophy course, and his teacher is very adamant about God being dead. On one of the first days of this class, he just sends a bunch of papers around and asks the students to say God's dead and then sign it. And when it gets to this one Christian student, he's like, I'm sorry, I can't sign this, right? It becomes this debate where the student has to stick up for God, and in front of the class, he's given class time at the end of a few different classes on top of his schoolwork to try to prove the existence of God, being that his classmates are the juries. I just love this movie because it follows a few different storylines, mainly this particular Christian student, but I like how it shows the atheism argument versus the Christian argument. So even if you're not Christian, I would actually recommend watching this movie. It can't hurt to be open-minded about these ideals. So this next movie is called Soul Surfer, and it's also based on a true story. It follows this teenager, her name is Bethany. She loses her arm in a shark attack, and it's all about her recovery and trying to figure out how to live life without an arm, especially because she's a surfer. Her life is her surfing, and that's very difficult to do without both arms. So it's all about her rehabilitating herself, trying to get back into surfing and not be afraid of the water after her shark attack. So it's more, the faith-based aspect is kind of more in the background. There's still adversity in knowing that God allowed this to happen. You know, like, it's easier said than done to believe that he's got a plan, so it kind of shows those moments of doubt. And like I said, this movie is based on a true story, so I like that aspect as well. When they're based on true stories, I know that they might add details and stuff, twist it a little bit, but for the most part, you know, this happened to somebody, and it adds more meaning to what the movie is trying to, the message the movie is trying to send you. So that movie was called Soul Surfer. This last movie might ruffle a few feathers, so to speak. This last movie is called Unplanned, and it is also based on a true story. The slogan of this movie is, "What she saw changed everything." Everyone not living under a rock knows about the abortion clinic corporation called Planned Parenthood. Most people also know about the opposite side of the abortion movement is pro-life. And it's not always that there is a Christian background to these people, it's also just science. Anyways, so the premise of this movie tells the story of one of the youngest clinic directors of Planned Parenthood in like history, Abby Johnson. She believed in the woman's right to choose until something happened in her career. I think it was like somewhere like 8 years into her career in this as like clinic director or working at Planned Parenthood. She had never assisted in an abortion before. She's called in to assist, and she goes into the bathroom and she's crying, and she hadn't really experienced a baby like fighting back before. The other thing about this movie is I like how it's laid out. She starts the movie by saying, you know, this was the day my life changed, and then it goes back to like when she's in college and she gets recruited by Planned Parenthood, all the way to the present day in her assisting in this abortion. And I don't know, I feel like I like that way of storytelling. It's a pretty emotional movie though, so I wouldn't just watch this on a day where you are not feeling well. I would leave it for a day where you're feeling like up for it. Alright, so those are my faith-based movies that I like. We've got A Week Away, we've got Miracles from Heaven, Soul Surfer, I'm Not Ashamed, God's Not Dead, and Unplanned. Hold on, I thought I had 7. Okay, I guess I just had 6. Those are my movies. I hope at least one of them jumped out to you. Maybe you'll try a new one. So these are just some of my faith-based Christian movies that I wanted to share with you because it's kind of hard to find them. Most media out there are not Christian, so I wanted to share these movies with you in case you haven't watched them or that you might be interested in watching them. If you're looking for more movie recommendations, you can check out my video. I'll link it in the description because it's also another movie recommendation video. Kind of more just like romance and action films, but still. So if you're looking for more recommendations, I would suggest to go check out that video. As always, You can have faith in a lot of things, but be the reason that somebody has faith in the kindness and goodness of people in this world. I hope you had a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.